Welcome back to Kings of Columbus. Bill Landis, Doug Lesmerises. I took down all the banners. It's just an Ohio State banner because we do Kings of the North 5 days a week, and we do Kings of Columbus once a week. This is foundational for us. We're never going to stop doing Kings of Columbus. We are who we are. We don't change our opinions, but I understand that this is for Ohio State fans, man, and they don't want to look at a Purdue banner.
No, some of the banners are pretty cool, though. I bet that there's some banners they don't mind looking at, but there are certain banners they definitely don't want to look at. So I'm glad that you just put the Ohio State one up there.
Yeah. So I am so excited for this show because we're going to do Whatcha Watching, Whatcha Eating, Whatcha Thinking at the end of it. We're going to, I think, like rotate week to week, whether Whatcha is on Kings of the North or Kings of Columbus. It fits on Kings of Columbus best this week. But primarily what we are going to do is look ahead 11 months and 3 weeks. You will not find another show doing it this week. And I've had to hold myself back from doing this preview 13 months ahead of time. So at least we're within the 365-day window because we are jumping forward to my 52nd birthday, Bill Landis. And on the day that I will turn 52 years old, my gift will be Julian Sayin versus Arch Manning in Ohio Stadium. It is the opener of the 2025 season, Texas at Ohio State. It will be the game the entire sport is talking about. It maybe could be a rematch of the national championship game, and it will almost certainly feature the two quarterbacks from the classes of 2023 and 2024, who were the general consensus number one quarterbacks in their classes, who most likely will be making their first starts against each other. Bill, I know you think this is crazy. I know Ohio State has a game this week against somebody. Texas is playing Michigan this week. We get it. We're covering all that on Kings of the North. On this show, we're doing Sayin versus Manning. Let's go.
Somebody's Western Michigan, by the way, in case anyone.
I could not be more excited for that game. But let me just double check. Does Arch Manning play for Western Michigan?
No, that'd be cool if he did, though, wouldn't
it? He'd at least be playing.
Put Arch in the.
We're going to be doing a huge Michigan-Texas preview on our Wednesday Kings of the North. So like we were watching the Texas game, they put Arch in the Texas game and like the stadium erupted.
Oh my God.
I mean, in the Colorado State game. Yeah.
It was crazy. And I was thinking to myself as I watched that, will we hear something similar when Ohio State puts Julian Sayin into a game? They did not do that against Akron.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Day probably could have. He basically just gave Devin Brown like most of the fourth quarter, and that was it.
Yeah,
I think this game and the Marshall game have a chance to get, or probably will get out of hand in similar fashions. So, and I think Julian Sayin will play in one of those two games. So I'm eager to see what the reaction to him is. It is a, Ohio State fans are lucky. It will not be the first time Ohio State fans get to react to like a highly touted 5-star freshman kind of guy getting into a game for the first time. So maybe it won't be quite as raucous as it was for Arch, but I do think it'll be interesting how people react to Julian when he gets into the game for the first time.
Everybody loves a backup quarterback, man, right? Especially when they're highly rated. So, and again, I don't know that any Texas fan is wishing Arch Manning was the starter instead of Quinn Ewers, because I thought Quinn Ewers looked really in control in week one, and I think Quinn Ewers is going to give Michigan a lot of problems. And I don't think any Ohio State fan is necessarily wishing that Julian Sayin was playing instead of Will Howard, because Will Howard had a great camp and has a different skill set that really seems to fit what Ohio State is doing right now. But 11 months and 3 weeks from now, people will be jacked through the roof. And we're just getting this out here now. Search engine optimization. Let's just do like a quick 20 minutes on SEO, because, inside baseball, the people understand this. You just get it out there. We're going to put Arch Manning in a headline. We're going to put Julian Sayin in a headline. And then we're going to let the Google machine work its magic. And it's going to be out there for 359 days of us just being ready. The future. People love the future in sports. It's why they love the draft. It's why they love recruiting. So we are leaning into what people want, which is, I know this is happening on Saturday, but what might happen next, right? That's how sports operates, man.
It is. And we're also on this show, we're going to talk 2025 depth chart too, for people who might be interested in that. You have a depth chart and I'm going to react to it, which I'm very much looking forward to. You
react means criticize. Yes.
Criticize. Yeah. I don't want to be hyperbolic about this game to open the 2025 season. I guess I mean from this standpoint, where do you think this will rank in like the biggest non-Michigan games played in Ohio Stadium, like in the last, I don't know, 50 years?
Let's go a step farther.
Okay.
Could it be the biggest regular season game in the history of college football? I'm just asking.
No.
So we can put it in the headline. Arch Manning, Julian Sayin.
1 verse 2 happened in Ohio Stadium. No.
Oh yeah, that was good. That was big. That was big. And by the way, like, yeah, the very first game, and I might have an unnatural inclination towards Ohio State, Texas, because as I've said many times, and I am in my old man repeating stories phase of my career, the very first Ohio State game I ever covered was Ohio State, Texas in 2005. And so like that, and then in 2006, when Ohio State went to Austin, I can very vividly remember doing just like a gigantic thing, breaking down these two gigantic athletic departments that have so much in common. And you kind of maybe thought someday Texas wind up in the Big Ten? That was sort of a talking point for a while. And Ohio State and Texas have so much in common. And this Texas-Michigan game, again, we'll do this on KOTN live on Wednesday. Like, you guys can go back and watch that. So like, if you want a breakdown of a game that's actually happening this year and this week, you can also find that. But these gigantic blue bloods, when you talk like Bill, right? When it comes to this, when it comes to history, winning, tradition, and still mattering right now, I think there are 5. I think this is fair. Would you say, name the 5 programs that have mattered the most historically while also mattering today? Who do you think those 5 are that I have in my head?
Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, and Notre Dame.
So I don't have Georgia in there because Georgia's close. I don't think Georgia.
Are you talking like Oklahoma, Nebraska?
Michigan. So Michigan, Ohio State, okay. Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Notre Dame would be my 5. Do you think that's? And again, I mean, if we want to have Georgia,
if you're factoring, if you're factoring like. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Those like long-term tradition and history of winning, I think those programs stand separate from Georgia. Yeah.
And so we just had Ohio State, Notre Dame for 2 years. We get Ohio State, Michigan every year. Bama has been the program that has sort of hovered out there over much of what Ohio State has done for the last decade. And we did get it in a national title game. We did get it in Ohio State's biggest win of the last 20 years. 85 yards through the heart of the South. And so then the other thing is Ohio State, Texas. Like, how do you get Ohio State, Texas? And you get it. Like, we're getting it to open next season. So they played 3 times before. They played the regular season series in 05 and 06, where each team won as a visitor. And then they played in the Fiesta Bowl after the 2008 season when Texas drove down the field and scored on the last series to beat them. So this will only be the 4th time that they play. This series was agreed to on October 10th, 2012, this is one of these things, Bill, where I think I am certainly capable of making fun of scheduling agreements that are 10 years out. But then you just wait around 10 years and they happen and you're like, tip of the cap to whoever scheduled this banger.
Yeah. Is there any part of you that's worried about this getting altered? Or are we too close to it now?
I think we're too close.
I was looking. Ohio State TCU was supposed to be a home and home that was moved to a one-off in Dallas, in the 2018 season. That was done in the spring of 2017. So a year and a few months prior to that game being played. Yeah, I think it's probably too late. But I'm like, there's like 1% of me that's like, Ohio State, Texas, and Las Vegas. Anybody kind of thing. So
the castle.
I don't want it to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're probably too close anyway. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't thinking that at least a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think, and they've done enough. Like, Washington, they were supposed to play the Washington series the past couple years, and that got canceled like right before Washington came into the Big Ten anyway. So it would have been weird. Like there's a couple teams that we've talked about on KOTN who are playing non-conference games this year against teams that are now in their conference, like Kansas State, Arizona, and Baylor, Utah. They're all in the Big 12 now, but those are non-conference games because they're previously scheduled. Ohio State could have been playing like a Washington series right now as a non-conference game, except now they're all in the Big 10, except they canceled it like whatever it was 12 months ago. So I think this is good. It originally was scheduled for 2022 and 2023 when they did it in 2012. So it was like 10 years out. Then in 2018, they moved it, and they moved it from 22 and 23 to 25 and 26. And then in 2020, they flipped it. So it was supposed to be at Texas first, at Ohio State second. Now it's at Ohio State, and this just fit everybody's schedule to open the season. The one thing I remember talking to Gene Smith a couple years ago when Ohio State, right after Ohio State beat Notre Dame in the opener in 2022. And then like last year they played Notre Dame in whatever week 3 it was. And Gene was saying like he would never, he would try to avoid that in the future. He does not like having your banger non-conference game in week 1. He would rather let you get your feet under you and then play that in week 2 or 3. But here we are. It's going to be week 1 with revamped rosters, and we assume guys who have not started before. What do you think of when games like this are week 1?
I mean, I like it as a way to like really start the season with a bang, but I think to Gene Smith's point, like you're not getting the best of either team in that scenario.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of a letdown. Like sometimes I think teams deliver. Like I thought USC LSU was pretty good, right? But the Notre Dame Ohio State game like 2 years ago was not a good football game. It was a close football game, but it wasn't
exciting.
It wasn't a fun game to watch necessarily. Right. So you run the risk of that anytime you play these kind of games. Even like Clemson, Georgia this year, like Clemson clearly was not ready for that. Maybe Clemson would have been more ready for it if the game was 2 weeks from now. So I guess like as a college football fan, I'm still generally in favor of it because I just love the idea of like grabbing 5 or 2 of your best 6 helmets and putting them on the field together in week 1 to really start the season off on the right foot.
It is one of those where if you're going to do that, then it would, now that's, I think for the sport, right? I like the idea of that. But then I think you enter the realm of then can we start to have something, maybe it's a closed scrimmage, maybe it's an open scrimmage, but you start having something like a preseason game 2 weeks before the season starts, where a MAC team comes down to Ohio State and you get some of that going. Then I think that makes more sense to start with the banger. But otherwise, I agree with you. Like it's sometimes you don't get the best game. So anyway, that's how we got
also on campus too.
Yeah,
just like this one is thankfully on campus. It's not in Vegas like USC LSU. It's not in Atlanta like Clemson, Georgia.
I do think the sport, and by the sport I mean Alabama. Like the sport is moving more toward campus stuff. We made a big deal about this when Bama started doing it and scheduling these home and home series. For instance, they're starting to do it this year with Wisconsin in week 3, and they have Ohio State and other teams like that. I think Notre Dame on the schedule for future home and homes. It's just better for the sport to play it on campus. Alabama was the leader in these one-off neutral site games that became the fad for 10 or 12 or 15 years. And I agree with you. It's better for the sport. I want Texas fans in Columbus. I want Ohio State fans in Tuscaloosa, right? So, by the way, so we're excited about this. We're glad it's happening. It's just a reminder, future series, right? This is what's ahead. So, by the way, Ohio State's schedule, non-conference schedule this season is terrible. And the reason it's terrible is because it was supposed to be Washington. And originally, that's why it was going to be Washington and Southern Miss. And then they whacked those and put in Marshall and Akron instead. So it's like, okay, that's why they don't play anybody good in the non-conference. But in the future, 2025 and 2026 is Texas. 2027 and 2028 is Alabama. 2030 and 31 is Georgia. Bill, it's a dream, brother.
It is a dream. Isn't there a Boston College mixed in there too? Which is like, I get like not the caliber of these programs,
Look at
but like
you.
still kind of cool.
Look at you jumping on the Boston. That'll be a banger with Bob, right? A Bob banger up with BC. Yes, it is out there. I think that's 32 and 33 maybe, or 34 and 35. That's way out there. It was closer. It got pushed back. But that'll be fun. But like,
that's right. Yeah. I thought it was before the Georgia series, but yeah, it's after.
But these are the three biggest Southern brands, and Ohio State's they're awesome. The next three non-conference foes for them. So, they've had times in the past where they played Washington or Miami. I mean, Miami was a good one when they scheduled it. Virginia Tech, right? Cal, but like those are good, but this is it, brother. Like this is as good as it gets. So suffer through what is not a great home slate. All Ohio State fans with season tickets, we've criticized that. We've been with you. Like it's not good, other than the last one. It is not a great home slate. But hold on to your butts because it's coming. Holy moly. I'm so excited for this stuff. So generally, we're excited for the idea of Ohio State playing Texas. But specifically, we're excited for the idea of Julian Sayin versus Arch Manning. Julian Sayin, in the 2024 recruiting class, so he's a freshman, was the composite number one quarterback. He was overall number one by Rivals, number two by ESPN, number two by On3, number three by 24/7. And then again, composite, he was number one in the class of 2024. Arch Manning in the class of 2023, he was number one. He was the number one composite quarterback. Rivals, he was number one. 24/7, he was number one. On3, he was number two. ESPN, he was number three. So, Bill, like this idea, and the crazy thing here, the interesting thing here is that Arch Manning has stayed at Texas. He did not transfer. Peyton Manning was talking about it this week. Drew Brees said something about like he hopes Arch Manning stays in college for 5 years, which is like, I don't know what we're talking about now. Although it does seem to be a thing now, Bill, when you hear some of the NFL stuff, there was a time, and like the time was like up until last year, when anybody in the NFL wanted was a young quarterback. They want to get you young. If you're an older quarterback, they're less interested in you. I don't know just if it's because of the portal and the COVID year and like it's the reality. So now people are accepting of it. But now it feels like Bo Nix is going to start as a rookie for the Denver Broncos, right? And like Michael Penix, and he's super old. Now, JJ was much younger. Drake May is much younger. Jaden Daniels, who's going to start in Washington, has been around forever. Caleb Williams is a unicorn. So, but I do think maybe with NIL and maybe with the NFL being more open to it, right? Maybe a couple of these guys will stay longer, that maybe Arch and Julian Sayin aren't necessarily 3 years in college and out guys. What do you think about like how this will play out with the top QB recruits?
I think you could be onto something because Quinn Ewers could have left, right? Quinn Ewers came back.
Yep,
and I don't know. Based off how the draft went, I think Quinn had a reasonable chance of being a first-round pick, and he decided to come back to school for another year and keep developing because he also makes a decent chunk of money doing NIL stuff. It's not nearly the same amount of money you make, obviously, being a first-round NFL draft pick, but I think it's enough to kind of make you think about it. And a lot of these quarterbacks will be in similar positions. So I guess I would say like I have more of an open mind toward that now when before I was just like, what are you talking about? They're going to go to the NFL as soon as they can go to the NFL. It does seem like maybe there's a little bit of a shift. I don't know. I mean, shoot, Quinn is like the best quarterback prospect ever, and he stayed for an extra year when no one thought he would. So I guess if he can do it, anyone's capable of it. I don't know that I'd bet on guys like Julian Sayin and Arch Manning sticking around for 1 year longer than you're anticipating, obviously barring like injury or something like that. But I do think we are in a new world that invites that opportunity.
So that's why we're jacked up about this. As Bill said, we're going to get into the depth charts and like that it's going to be a really different Ohio State roster. But part of the issue is this whole natty or bust thing for Ohio State that I just think I've been trying to sort of push back against that for months. But just because I don't think it makes it fun, I just think like why again? Why is talent and opportunity? Why does that automatically equal pressure? Why do you start thinking about the what if they fail, what if they don't get it done idea? But I propose the slogan, natty or bust your butt trying instead of natty or bust. Because I don't think, and I was going to say the A word. Do we say the A word on the show yet or no? Do you know?
I think
better for the shirt.
You can sneak one in every now and then. Yeah.
You can?
Yeah.
We want kids here. We want parents to be able to listen with their kids. And I think that does happen. And we don't want to be, can you imagine the story that a kid would tell of what's the first time you ever heard a curse word? And it was like, I was listening to Kings of Columbus. Do we want that story? Is that a memory we want to be part of? My first curse word.
I kind of want to be a part of that. Yeah.
It's kind of cool. Do? All right.
Yeah.
Then
So that's a seminal moment in anyone's life.
Oh, so I was at a high school football game on Friday night, and there was a person working the concession stand. I think often it's like the athletic booster parents who work the concession stand. And somebody in the concession stand at the high school football game was wearing a t-shirt that said in very, very large letters, "Game effing day," but it didn't say effing in the concession stand. So I guess if it's good for the concession stand, it's good for the podcast.
Yeah.
A t-shirt that would say "Natty" or "Bust our ass trying," I think is a better way of doing it, because the thing to me is Ohio State is not an or bust place. I do think Washington especially was more of like an or bust kind of thing with the roster they had last year. And I think Michigan, not that Michigan's not a great program, but I think Michigan is in more of a or bust kind of place, because it felt like maybe it would be Harbaugh's last year. There was a group of guys who stayed in pursuit of something after 2 previous playoff appearances, that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of this is Natty or Sayin, Smith, and Downs in 2025, right? That it's like, well, what's your or? It's not like they are going to be a completely new program, but this is what we're looking at. We're looking at an opener where both these teams, Texas and Ohio State in 2025, are going to be in the top 5. They might be 1 versus 2. And Julian Sayin is going to be throwing the ball to Jeremiah Smith in that game. And Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles are going to be playing defense for, maybe Sonny not, right? Sonny's a maybe.
That'll be, he's a maybe, yeah.
But Downs has to be there. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's like, that's the part of it that I think is like factually wrong, because Ohio State, as we've talked about a million times before, when you try to game it out in your head, when's the season they should win it all, they typically win it a different season. Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's a bust, because we're talking about the number 1 quarterback recruit in his class being Ohio State starter in 2025.
Yeah, natty or bust, I think, suggests that like the expectations recalibrate after the year, and they don't. Yes. They don't here, right? They don't here. They don't that Georgia, and that's probably maybe the only 2 places where that's true. At the moment, I suppose Alabama, although they did lose Nick Saban. So I think that's right. I don't think Ohio State fans should be like, oh, whatever happens, happens. At least we'll get Julian Sayin next year. Like you should very much be locked in on this year and Ohio State chasing a national title. But if you're saying, you're just coming back and taking another run at it next year, and then the year after that, and the year after that, like I agree with that premise, but I don't know that I agree with like, oh, whatever. Hopefully they're good, and if they don't get it done, they don't get it done. What about next year?
Now I want to open a natty or bust t-shirt stand right next to the whatever happens t-shirt stand and see what the lines look like. Hey, I got an Ohio State shirt. Which one did you get? I got the whatever happens.
Yeah, I don't think that's where we are. Yeah.
No. Ohio State's own fan, like you would be booed in Ohio Stadium by Ohio State's own fans wearing a scarlet and gray, whatever happens. That says,
I hope everyone has fun. Yeah.
Do your best. Thanks for trying. But there's always opportunity. All right. And particularly this, it won't be the greatest. Well, I don't want to preemptively take away. I don't want to cut the legs out from under our own show. It is not necessarily the greatest quarterback matchup of all time, but it's pretty up there by the 24/7 all-time quarterback recruit rankings back the last 20 years or so. Mm-hmm. Julian Sayin is 35th all-time in those rankings, which out of all history is pretty good. Like Rex Kern's not in there, but I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Right. It's like the modern recruiting world.
Yeah.
Arch Manning is 8th. Do you want to play a game, Bill Landis?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to play how many of the top 10 quarterback recruits of all time can you name? And this is a tangent, but I like it when people can play games along with us while they're watching and listening to the show.
So this is like the modern internet era of recruiting.
Yeah, I think it's all. Can
I ask for one piece of clarifying information? Can you tell me like the earliest guy on, like what year roughly the earliest guy on the list is?
Yeah, let me look real quick, because I think it's late 90s or early 2000s.
Okay.
And so it is Yeah, it's like, yeah, I think everybody's in the 2000s. There's somebody from like 2006 or 7, and there might be somebody older than that. But yeah.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Top 10. Who you got?
Quinn Ewers.
Quinn Ewers is number 5. So again, like this is whatever. It's just a list. You see a list, you write it down. Quinn Ewers is 5.
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence is number 1.
Yeah. Justin Fields.
Justin Fields is number 2, which is why we were so jacked when Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence played each other, and they went to high school down the road from each other, and they met in college. They are 1 and 2 all time still. So I guess Arch and Julian Sayin is not quite Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, but we're in the same range.
Yeah. So is Vince Young on this list?
He is number 4 for Vince Young. Well done.
Okay. That gets a little more difficult because there's just a lot of guys in my head at the moment. Caleb Williams?
He is not. Caleb Williams is number 31.
Okay. Matthew Stafford.
Matthew Stafford is an excellent guess. He is number 21.
This is going to take a while, so you can cut me off whenever you feel like
it's
it.
It's a couple more super famous guys, and then a couple fringe guys, and one guy I'm not exactly sure who he is.
Bryce Young.
Bryce Young is number 3. Well done by you. So you have the top 5. The top 5 is Lawrence, Fields, Bryce Young, Vince Young, Quinn Ewers.
Okay.
And Arch is 8.
Arch is
so there's
8,
only 4 more to get.
6, 7, 9, and 10.
Do you want a hint?
Give me a hint.
I'll give you a hint. There's an Ohio State guy on here.
Terrell Pryor?
Terrell Pryor is number 7.
Interesting.
And I'll give you there's one more like super famous guy who was mid in college, but he was like the most famous quarterback recruit of all time. Practically. He had a limo.
Yeah. The Notre Dame guy. What the heck's his name?
Jimmy Clausen. Jimmy Clausen is number 10. Number 9 is Matt Barkley at USC. And number 6 is Brock Berlin, who I know that name, but I'm not exactly sure who it is. So anyway.
Brock Berlin.
Yeah, our top 10, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Bryce Young, Vince Young, Quinn Ewers, Brock Berlin, Terrell Pryor, Arch Manning, Matt Barkley, Jimmy Clausen. Julian Sayin is 35. Other guys on this list, 14, DJ Uiagalelei, 17, Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee right now, 18, Dante Moore at Oregon right now. He'll be Oregon starter next year. Matt Stafford was 21. 22 is Bryce Underwood, who's the Michigan kid, who's the number 1 recruit in the current class, who's committed to LSU. 24 is DJ Lagway, who's probably going to take over as the quarterback at Florida as a true freshman at some point this year. Jackson Arnold is 30, the sophomore quarterback at Oklahoma. Caleb Williams is 31. Julian Sayin, 35. Tim Tebow is 44. And Dylan Raiola is 50. So that's what we're talking about. So if we're talking about a matchup in the opener next year, Bill, and they've never played, as they've never started, if that's the case, we're talking about 8 versus 35, number 1 recruits in each of their classes, a third-year guy and a second-year guy who are the present and the future of 2 blue blood programs. Like, again, I think the buildup around that will, I mean, like, I can't say unprecedented, but the quarterback talk around that, it's going to be a month long. It's going to be a month long building into it. And I think it has a chance to set some kind of ratings record. And I would it'll be a fight. This will be really interesting to find out what network's going to have it, because Fox is still going to take Ohio State, Michigan as their number 1 pick in the TV draft. So does that mean that this winds up as like an 8:00 primetime game on NBC? Could somehow CBS get it for the 3:30 window? But this is going to be a mammoth TV rating.
Yeah, I think the way it works though is like Fox gets the first couple of weeks, don't they?
And they're taking this. This is the number 2 pick then next year.
Because Fox had. Well, I don't know. I'm assuming Fox had first pick in week 1 because it had Penn State, West Virginia, and it has Texas, Michigan this week. So
I think when you pick the week that you want to have dibs, I think in the draft is how it works.
Yeah,
so
yeah. But Fox has more. Fox has more picks.
Yes.
I think.
It's not a fair draft.
This will be. I would be shocked if this is not the big noon opener.
Big noon opener. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be through the roof, right? I mean, the rating on this.
Yeah, you know, it is, and it'll be. I think it's going to be largely arch driven. I actually think Julian Sayin's place, kind of in that conversation, will be interesting because I don't know. I don't know how much the outside world like sort of knows about Julian Sayin. I think they know that he was a 5-star quarterback who was going to go to Alabama, who then transferred to Ohio State. It doesn't have the same kind of fanfare following him
No,
that Arch Manning does nearly, but I don't even think he has similar fanfare to like a Trevor Lawrence or a Justin Fields or even a Nico Iamaleava. Like
I
someone like
agree.
Julian Sayin is like for as highly touted as he is, it feels like he's pretty under the radar. So and once it becomes clear that he's going to be Ohio State starter in 2025, obviously a lot more eyeballs will be directed his way. But I don't know like how much of a quarterback showdown this thing will be billed as going into the game, or if it'll just be here comes Arch Manning.
I think it will be billed as a quarterback showdown, but I think every discussion except here, except on Kings of the North, except on Kings of Columbus, is going to be Arch with Julian Sayin as the sidekick, as the, but hold on a second, like almost like with Greg Oden and Mike Conley at Ohio State. One guy is the best high school recruit you ever saw, and the other guy is also pretty good. And then it turned out that Mike Conley was a monster in his own right. It'll be a super interesting, like Julian Sayin is going to get to fly under the radar. And then if Julian Sayin outplays Arch Manning in that game, then it's off to the races. But it's an immediate Heisman showdown as well. Yeah. Because again, the quarterback at Texas, the quarterback at Ohio State are always in that conversation. And I know at times, and then again, the greatest mistake of my career, I've made so many mistakes. It's hard to say which the greatest. Top 100 Doug mistakes. The idea that I wound up with an Ohio State Georgia national championship game that I didn't really want. I really thought I was going to wind up with an Ohio State Texas national championship game. I really think we have a chance to get that. And if we get that and then we get it in week 1, if it's the last game of this season and the first game of next season, again, Bill, like that's why we're doing it 11 months and 3 weeks ahead of time, because this game with the players and the programs and what they both might do this year. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huge.
Pretty good.
Gigantic.
Yeah. Pretty huge.
Yeah.
And and we're also like, we ended up getting Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields twice. And there's more backstory. There's more backstory to that than there is to this potential matchup. But like we know, I guess we don't know. We can reasonably assume we're going to get 2 Sayin versus Manning regular season games, right? But then could also maybe get at least 1 playoff game out of that too, right? Over the next 2 years. We know Julian Sayin is playing college football 2025 and 2026. And I think Arch Manning, even though he will be draft eligible after next season, I think will probably be around 25 and 26. So we're going to get this again in 2026 in Austin. And I would feel pretty good like placing a wager on an Ohio State Texas playoff game happening sometime over the next 2 years too. So that like kind of presents different stakes for this too. Like this will be the first meeting between the two, but this could be kind of like a triple header QB matchup that happens over the course of 2 seasons that like gets people really fired up.
The recruiting profiles: Arch Manning 6'4", 215, Julian Sayin 6'1", 195. So Arch just is a little more imposing physically. Their overall composite quarterback ratings, which is why Arch was 8th overall and Julian Sayin was 35th. Arch is 0.9995. Again, like the 1.00, that's like you're like a perfect quarterback. Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields are 1.00 with other numbers. They're like better than perfect. So 9995 for Arch, 9966 for Sayin. So this is the world that Julian Sayin is going to live in, though, is that he's going to come in as like the underdog, all this stuff, Ohio State at home. It is going to be fascinating because you're right. It is not going to be equal hype. And the idea that Texas will be on the road for it in Ohio Stadium, this is one of those of like, get your ticket now. Like find a way. This is maybe why you got season tickets this year, so you can make sure you get season tickets next year. Also, you won season tickets this year because Ohio State's going to host Michigan and maybe break the 3-game losing streak. But okay, like but
it's going to be like, I remember. So when Ohio State opened the year against Notre Dame 2 years ago at home, and like Joe Burrow was there and LeBron was there, and I was thinking to myself, like, how could this possibly get any bigger? It's like, well, do that again, but throw the Mannings in the mix.
Yes.
Throw Texas in the mix. Like, it's going to be absolutely insane on that day. Even though it's not going to be a night game, I don't think that'll really take anything away from it. But like every single football fan like on the planet is going to be watching this game, and it's going to
Yeah.
be a celebrity-filled event in Ohio Stadium too, I think.
So you want to talk more about Western Michigan now, or do you want to keep talking about the biggest regular season game?
Western Michigan, I think, provides an opportunity for Ohio State to run the ball a little better this week. So we'll see how that goes.
Boo! Do it on another show. On this, see, now I feel like the way this is broken down now is you and Austin and Berm talk about football, analyze football. You're there for the fans. You prepare them for what's right in front of them. And I'm just over in the corner. I'm just the hype man. I'm just the crazy hype man. Hype man in the north. Where's my sword? I'm not going to pull a sword out. Here, wait. Can you see? I'll lean. There's the swords. Can you see the swords behind me back there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all I end up. Wait, here we go. Whoop, there's a sword. There's a crown. There's a sword. Oh, there's not a sword. So I'm just a hype man of the north. So also Texas can cram it. So, but the opportunity for Ohio State to welcome Arch Manning to the world of starting college football quarterback and then beat him, right? Man.
Yeah. Arvell Reese will be the one welcoming Arch Manning to college football.
Yeah.
And I look forward to that.
Can you ask that Wednesday night at interviews? Can the first time? See, I'm just not around as Ohio State as much. You're 2 jobs Landis. So like, if you can try to find a way to start working in some Texas questions, just the next couple weeks to just, we could, it actually would have been helpful if we had them ahead of time. Do they even know? Because if there was an Ohio State guy who would go along with it, and then you just said, do you know that Ohio State is going to open next season against Arch Manning in the shoe? I do think there would be guys who'd be like, really? And get excited. Don't you think?
I would imagine that most of them probably haven't realized that yet. Because why would they? Like, they know who Arch is. They may even know that Ohio State opens against Texas next year, but I don't know. Like, even I didn't put 2 and 2 together until like 4 weeks ago when you brought this topic up. I was like, oh my God, Arch Manning's starting debut is going to be in Ohio Stadium.
I've been putting 2 and 2 together for 9 months, just walking around. 2 and 2 is 4. 2 and 2 is 4. Do you guys know that 2 and 2 is 4? I'm telling the whole world. Last question about this. It only would add intrigue, but also we do have a whole entire season to play. Injuries, space alien abductions happen. So you never know. Like, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about either of these quarterbacks playing by necessity.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly have broached the idea of what if Julian Sayin had to play this year. I don't know how much people are broaching it in Texas. I think at least a tiny bit. If you had to pick which quarterback is more likely to play meaningful snaps this year in a non-injury situation, would you pick Arch Manning as Quinn Ewers' backup or Julian Sayin as Will Howard's backup?
I would pick
actually even the backup.
Yeah, I mean, I would pick Arch because of that. Because at the moment, Julian's the 3rd quarterback. So I don't know. I think that's fluid. I said before the year that I think maybe Ryan Day and Chip Kelly might kind of rotate who's number 2 week to week, which is to say, I want to alert for Julian playing this week against Western Michigan after he didn't play against Akron. But it has to be Arch because Arch is already number 2. So Julian has to first get ahead of Devin Brown before he would play at all.
Yeah. And how'd you think Arch looked when he got in? Because again, he wasn't the number. Last year, Quinn got hurt at Texas, and Arch wasn't the backup. He was in the exact situation that Julian Sayin is now. Malik Murphy was the backup, and then he transferred to Duke because he saw the writing on the wall, where I think he's going to be good. He's going to play against Northwestern this week when Duke goes to Evanston on Friday night. How did you think? So Arch got backup snaps at the end of the Colorado State game. He looked like he was ready, right?
He looked pretty good. Yeah, he's more athletic than I thought he was, and and he's big. He's bigger than I thought he is. So like, he moved around really well. The crazy touchdown pass where he like scrambled and like threw a little shovel pass to, I think, Silas Bolden.
Our guy Silas Bolden from Oregon State, man.
Yeah. I think he scored on a QB sneak too. So he's like a big, burly dude who can move around a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is all I want to accomplish out of this show. We're gonna get to the depth charts for next year in a second. But as Ohio State is opening the season with Akron, Western Michigan, off week, Marshall, all I want is for you watching and listening to this show to say to your friend this week, hey, did you know Ohio State opens with Texas next year and is probably going to be Arch Manning's first career start against Julian Sayin? And then have a lovely little conversation at lunch.
Yeah,
I'm not saying overlook anybody, but it's just like, I don't know that I don't think we have 4 weeks of interesting Ohio State conversation to wrap around Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall. No offense to this. Actually, take offense to the schedule. They should never have this happen. I understand why it happened, but it should never happen. This is a terrible start to the season. So there's room. Make a little room for Arch and Julian in your heart. You know what I'm saying? That's all.
We're not staring down another one of these anytime soon, right?
No, because I don't know who the 29 is. Maybe that they'll do a one-off.
29. So 29. It still needs a third team. There's only Nevada and Charlotte right now for 29. But there's there's a Power 5 and then there's a Power 5, Power 5, Power 5. That is the only year between now and 2031 where there's not already a Power 5 non-conference opponent schedule.
And so I'm not against that. Just don't make it the norm, the regular thing. But if they want to use that 29 for a one-off to go play, I don't know, Tennessee and Charlotte, or to go play, whomever, like whatever, like big time random game that go play Utah and Vegas or something, right? I'm up for that. You know what I mean? Like go play like the TCU. Just don't make it the norm. So maybe there's a window there, but otherwise, this is like in 19 when they didn't play anybody because again, the TCU thing had been a 2-game series that was turned to a 1-game series, and they're playing Cincinnati and Florida Atlantic, and there wasn't anything fun in September. So we are promoting the game that they should be playing and normally are playing. And then there's people out there who are like ripping Ohio State's schedule, but Ohio State is playing Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, Iowa. So that's still 4 bangers.
5 if you include Nebraska. Yeah.
And 5 if you include Nebraska. Yeah. So like that, I apologize. I should have. So that's 5 really good games. There's just no good non-conference games. So they're just off the radar in this week 2 window where week 2 in the North and across the board is great, right? Mm-hmm. We're getting Michigan, Texas. We're getting Tennessee, North Carolina State. We're getting Iowa, Iowa State, and Colorado, Nebraska. And I'm jealous of that for the Buckeyes. So that's why we're looking ahead 11 months and 3 weeks. And part of that is trying to figure out who else will play for Ohio State. When we come back, what will the Ohio State starting offense look like in 2025? We'll do that next on Kings of Columbus. Back on Kings of Columbus. We're so grateful for anybody who's here. If you're new, if you've been with us from the jump, if you watch every Ohio State show on the podcast channel, whether it's in video or audio form, if you only watch Kings of Columbus, if you have no idea who we are and you're here by accident because you were trying to find a video of people trying on fall attire, right? There's a lot of video. I've seen there's a lot of videos of people like trying on, like you'll see someone trying on attire or like trying on jewelry, that kind of thing. It's very helpful. We could try to do that here, but if you're here, thanks. And if you're here and you're not over at Kings of the North, maybe give us a try. That's all we would say. Bill in the break said he will not have a 25-minute Austin Sarabeld conversation, even though in his heart and in his loins, he kind of wants to. Don't you? You're like, hurry up the arch talk. Let's go. We got George Fitzpatrick to talk about. Enough with Arch. His name was Austin Manning. We would. All right. Let's start with the offensive line. Who will be Ohio State's starting offensive line next year? We have to start with who's going to be gone. Josh Fryer's going to be gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seth McLaughlin will be gone, right?
Yep.
Donovan Jackson will be gone, right?
Correct.
Do you think Josh Simmons will be gone? His eligibility will not be out, but do you think he will depart for the NFL if you had to guess right now?
My guess right now is yes, that he will. Yeah.
Okay. So they will either be replacing 3 or 4 offensive line starters.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just run through my whole starting depth chart. I have a bunch of slashes, and you then will double back and you tell me where I'm right or wrong. At left tackle, I have Ian Moore or George Fitzpatrick. At left guard, I have Austin Sareveld. At center, I have Josh Padilla or Carson Hinsman. At right guard, I have Josh Padilla or Carson Hinsman. And at right tackle, I have Tegra Shabola, but also maybe Luke Montgomery. But Tegra at the moment would be the only starter back. So there's a lot of slashes. I don't know how guys are going to move around.
Yeah.
I put Ian Moore there as a second-year guy who was a pretty big-time recruit getting into that tackle mix. Now you go.
No, I think if the exercise says you can only do guys who are currently on the roster, that's probably more or less where I would be.
Okay.
It's a little confusing because of like Tigger could be guard or tackle, Luke Montgomery could be any position, any of the five. Yep. Carson Hinsman can play guard or center as you pointed out. So, and even Austin Sarabel played tackle some this camp, and people are like, "Oh, that looks kind of interesting." So, I don't know that they want to play him a tackle long term, but I think they could potentially. I think my projected depth chart would have probably transfers at both tackle spots.
Okay. What do you think about Ian Moore? What is your Ian Moore expectation at the moment? It is not impossible for a highly rated second-year offensive lineman to play if he's ready to go. Paris Johnson was more than ready to go. Taylor Decker was ready to go. Like, I understand that. Like, what you wouldn't pencil him in at a tackle spot?
You could talk me into it, I think, pretty easily. He was fairly highly rated. He was one of the guys in camp who was like thrust into some uncomfortable roles because they were missing guys, and I think they like how he responded to that, and he like lost his black stripe. So, and I think he's probably like on paper in the 2 deep right now at tackle. So definitely on the table for him to be a starter next year as a second-year guy. So if you want to say maybe one transfer tackle, I think they're going to have at least one transfer tackle. Maybe I should say that instead of 2. And then you figure out the other tackle spot between Ian Moore and George Fitzpatrick, or maybe Tegra if you want to kick Tegra out the tackle.
List of all the guys that we've talked about so far, give me your order of most likely to be a starter somewhere on Ohio State's offensive line next year. Is Tegra number 1?
Tegra is number 1. I think Austin Sareveld is number 2.
Okay.
I think Carson. I think Carson Hinsman, as long as he is around and doesn't transfer, would be 3.
Okay. And now we're in Josh Padilla, Luke Montgomery, Ian Moore range.
Yeah.
Who do you think is a more likely starter, Montgomery or Padilla next year?
Montgomery.
Okay. All right. So if those were your 5, if Tegra, let's say Tegra at right tackle, Sareveld, Hinsman, and Montgomery as your 3 interior guys, and a transfer tackle, and then Ian Moore in that mix somewhere, right? But if that's if that was your starting 5, Tegra and a transfer at tackle, Sareveld, Hinsman, and Montgomery inside in some order, how would you feel about that?
I would feel
breath. That was a deep breath.
Well, it's only. I think you're just like, it's okay in college. Like, I try not to get too hung up on it. Like, I think Tegra is a guard. Like, Tegra is going to play guard in the NFL.
Yeah.
So, are you maximizing your offensive line by moving him to tackle, or are you moving him to tackle to like patch a hole? So,
right.
I think I would be okay with it. I don't think it's my ideal situation. Like, ideally, I would like to keep Tegra at guard and go find a tackle in the portal, or hope that Ian Moore. Yeah, I think I would rather keep Tegra at guard, hope that Ian Moore is ready, and go find another tackle in the portal.
I don't know that they are you have to go by what they've done. I would not count on 2 transfer tackles. Like, I almost can't imagine them pulling that off. But absolutely focusing and throwing every nickel in NIL transfer money they have at the best tackle out there. And there's they got to be ready in December. They got to jump.
They got to be ready now.
They got to be ready to go. They cannot there might not even be a second window anymore. Right. So it might be which would be good for them, because like, it's like we'll see what happens. I mean, they got Josh Simmons in the second window, and he's been their left tackle for 2 years. Also, please stay Josh Simmons again is a strategy that could be employed. He could be your NIL money tackle.
Absolutely. And I think that would be their preference. I think that there's a thought internally that he might become too good for that.
Okay.
Like, if he's looking at being a second round pick potentially.
If Josh Simmons goes to the NFL and they do not get a transfer tackle in the December window, we are preparing for, we won't have time to talk about Arch Manning next August because we're going to be doing tackle shows all camp.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have 2 wide open tackle races and be like, what are they doing? They got to protect Julian Sayin. All right. This is a very, very up in the air situation for 2025. That fair to say? And they got to figure some stuff out. Yeah. But also Cerveld, Montgomery, and Padilla were like were Justin Fry's like big all Ohio recruiting class when he first got here, and it'll be go time for those 3 guys. So like that also, if all of a sudden you're expecting at least 2 out of 3 of Cerveld, Padilla, and Montgomery to be ready to start in year 3, that is certainly not unreasonable in any form or fashion in terms of recruiting or development. And then that's how this stuff's supposed to work.
Yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable, and I think they're in a pretty good spot with Cerveld, especially.
Okay.
Montgomery, I think they have to figure out what's the best position for him, and it might actually be center.
And let him settle.
Yeah,
they got to let that guy settle, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Is Jelani Thurman going to be the starting tight end next year and have a chance to have a big year?
I think so. Will Kasmerica has eligibility left, so he'll be back next year. But I think Jelani is your number 1 tight end next year.
All right, I'm good with that. Starting receivers in 2025, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Innes with Mylan Graham really working in. Are those the top 4 probably?
Yeah. Bryson Rogers, I think, is probably the 5th guy. Yeah.
Okay. How's that sound to you? Does that work for you?
That sounds A-okay to me.
Yeah.
I think they'll be pretty good.
Do you think is there any, so Trayvon Henderson, this is his last year for sure. Quinshon Judkins could stay. Do you think there's any chance of that? Again, with the NIL making it happen.
No,
that's not counting that. So how does a running back combo next year of sophomore James Peoples and freshman Bo Jackson sound to you?
I like it. They really, really, really like James Peoples. Like, I don't think there is a single concern with anyone at Ohio State about James Peoples being this team's number 1 running back next year as a sophomore. It's the rest of the room that's probably a little more concerning because it's Peoples and Sam Williams-Dixon, who is like a tweener, kind of like a slash receiver kind of guy. And then you'll have the two freshmen who are currently committed, Bo Jackson and Isaiah West. I think they're gonna have to get a portal running back, like a veteran guy who is okay. I think being number 2 to Peoples, but I think Peoples is absolutely number 1 running back next year.
You think Jackson can play? Is Jackson have the pedigree to play as a true freshman as the number 2 back?
Maybe. I think that's the position where it's easiest to play as a true freshman. So it's not like I'm not alarmed by the proposition of it, but they need more experience in that room regardless. So they have to go get somebody, I think.
And then, at quarterback, we just did 40 minutes on Julian Sayin. Aaron Noland is here. That will be a battle in the spring. Devin Brown could still be here, although I do think it probably would be time for Devin Brown to go be a starter somewhere else. And that is not a criticism of Devin Brown. It is a reality for Devin Brown. I think he is a starting level quarterback in college football. But Julian Sayin is Julian Sayin. And so I certainly am not uncomfortable talking about Julian Sayin being the starter next year, but I would love to see Devin Brown get a chance to play somewhere.
Yeah, the other guy there is Tavian St. Clair, who will be a true freshman.
You can do that. Yeah.
No, I don't think
Tavian St. Clair.
I think Tavian's going to be great at Ohio State. Like I'm super excited about a guy with that physical profile and his skills being the quarterback here. He does not. He plays a level of high school football where he is just like unstoppable. So there's going to be a pretty big jump up for him. And I'm not saying he can't handle it. I'm just saying I don't know about really pushing to get on the field as a true freshman. I think that's more of a 2026 conversation. But he'll be here and it'll be interesting and people will be talking about him. So I think it's worth saying his name.
Saying his name. Say his name. All right. Quarterback in 2025. Feel good, right? We feel good about that. Mm-hmm. Running back in 2025. Feel pretty good. Like if the James Peoples, people are, you're all in on James Peoples. I think they certainly would have the ability to get like the portal running back that you're talking about. Probably feel pretty good about running back.
Yeah. My only question is whether or not they think they need to get 2. 2 transfers, because I guess they could get a third guy in the recruiting class, but then your room is 2 sophomores and 3 freshmen. I don't think you want to be in that world necessarily. So, and
Okay.
I don't know. I still don't know long term like what exactly Sam Williams Dixon is for this offense in terms of position stuff. So, um, I could see them looking for 2 transfer running backs, but Peoples is definitely, I think, RB1.
Okay. Receiver, feel potentially great.
Feel awesome about receiver.
Okay.
Yeah.
And still waiting for like the Jelani Thurman explosion to happen. I don't think we've given up on that idea of him being a real playmaker at tight end, right?
No, I haven't. And I thought it was a little telling, at least in the opener against Akron, that G. Scott, Will Kazmarek, and Jelani Thurman basically play the same number of snaps.
Yeah.
So, which is I'm reading that as they're going to play you all equally and looking for somebody to take the job, which means Jelani has a chance to do it.
Okay. So, assuming that Quinshon Judkins does not stay, and assuming that Josh Simmons does not stay, we are talking about 3 returning starters on offense.
Mm-hmm.
It would be Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate at receiver and Tegra Shabola on the offensive line. So 3 returning starters on offense. That is going to be
you could say tight end too. I think you could.
Jelani's a co-starter. We'll see. We'll see how that winds up. Yeah.
But even if it's Will Kazmarek, like I think they're both back next year. So
okay.
I think between the 2 of those guys, you can say you have 1 starter or half a starter or whatever.
Okay. Or 4. But that's gonna be the kind of thing that we're gonna be hearing like all offseason. Like, oh, only 3 or 4 returning starters on the offense. It's gonna be another summer, another offseason of offensive line talk until like this is how it works. You have some stuff in recruiting where it doesn't quite go how you want it to go. And then 2 or 3 years later, you're having conversations about are they good enough and are they deep enough? So we had a lot of offensive line discussions this offseason, and it feels like maybe the offensive line rounded into shape okay, even though then week 1 wasn't great. I think the offensive line conversation next year, depending, has a chance to be like even more heightened because you're going to be so inexperienced, unless they're just like Padilla, Hinsman, Montgomery, Saraveld, like they're Tegra, they're all guys that have been in our plans. Like we're good. They maybe haven't started a ton of games, but like we're locked down. Like don't worry about it. I don't know. I don't think that'll be the case though. We'll be talking about O-line.
Yeah, I think we will. I want to see how much those guys get to play this year.
Yeah,
they really need to get those guys on the field this year.
All right, so we're talking 3 or 4 starters back on offense. We won't take a break. We'll go straight into the defensive depth chart. 2 starters back on defense next year. The whole starting defensive line should be gone, right?
Yes.
JT and Jack on the edge, Tyleek and Ty Ham inside, all gone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cody Simon at linebacker will be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock at corner will be gone, right?
Yep.
Lathan Ransom at safety will be gone, right?
Yep. Correct.
Davison Igbignosin, do you think he will be here or do you think he will be in the NFL draft?
NFL draft, first rounder.
He and Josh Simmons are basically the same conversation as guys who started their careers somewhere else, transferred here, made impacts right away, will be 2-year starters and then maybe out the door. I think you anticipate them out the door. I think it is a very good comparison. That's 9. That's 9 starters that they should be replacing on defense next year. We're talking about a world where the 2 guys who would be back are Caleb Downs at safety for sure. And now it's like, would CJ Hicks or Sonny Styles, one of those 2, who's the starter? Like, would you guess that Sonny is back or gone? That he early enrolled, was here for year 1, but was kind of half a high school guy still. Played safety last year, playing linebacker this year. Do you think that will be his college career? Do you think he has a good chance to come back for year 4?
I think he has a good chance to come back for year 4 because he's so young.
Yeah.
If he left
and
after this
switch.
Yeah, he switched positions, so he'd have 1 year of linebacker play / tape, and he'd be playing most of his rookie NFL season at 20 years old if he left.
Right.
After this year. So I think he'll stay as my lead.
I have him back. And even though acknowledging that he would be eligible to go.
Yep.
That's a lot. So now we're talking about a world like 3 or 4 starters back on offense, 1 or 2 starters back on defense. This is the world that we are going to be living in next year for Ohio State. Here's my starting defensive line in 2025. Edge guys. Edric Houston on one side, and then some combination of Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson at the other, and Mitchell Melton working in. But those are the top 4 edge guys. Does that sound right?
That does sound right. Mitchell Melton does have an extra year of eligibility. He'd be very old. He'd be, is that a 7th, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 6-year player, but I think he'll keep playing.
Okay.
Yeah, those are my 4, and I don't know that I look at any of the currently committed defensive and / defensive line prospects and think like that guy's definitely going to push to be a starter as a true freshman. Maybe Zion Grady, who's a defensive end commit, top 100 guy. I don't even know if Zahir Mathis is going to end up at Ohio State. So I think those are your 4. Yeah.
Okay. Inside, Caden McDonald, Hero Canoe, and Jason Moore as the 3 top names off the list. Does that sound right?
That sounds right. And Tywone Malone would still have some eligibility, I think, to be the 4th guy there.
Okay.
I could see, because they'll want to play, I think, at least 4 tackles. So if your top 3 are Hero Kanu, Caden McDonald, and Jason Moore, I could see them looking for tackle help in the portal too. But I think they would feel good about those 3 being their top 3.
All right. So if those are our 8 names that we just threw out there, how would you feel about that group as the defensive line next year? Again, Edric Houston, 5-star recruit, be a second-year guy.
Yeah.
Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson have been waiting. They would be 4th-year guys who have been kind of waiting in the shadow of Jack and JT. What do you think about that group?
I think it's pretty good. It's actually like for an inexperienced group, it's an older group. You're talking fourth year Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson, 4th year Hero Kanu, 3rd year Caden McDonald and Jason Moore. Like, it's not like you're trotting out a bunch of freshmen and sophomores. So like those guys have to play this year, and they will. Ohio State played 16 defensive linemen against Akron.
Okay.
So like they're gonna get these guys reps because I think they know what's coming. But I feel okay about that. Yeah.
Okay. Linebacker. Do you think CJ Hicks is in the same boat as Sonny Styles, that he could go after year 3, but it's quite likely he'd be here for year 4?
I don't think CJ Hicks is staring down an NFL decision. No, I don't. I wouldn't put him quite in the same boat. I think there are more philosophical questions about how to use CJ Hicks.
Yeah.
So which could bring him back for sure, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't know what to make of it. I would not project him as a starting linebacker in 2025. I think the 2 starting linebackers in 25 are Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese.
And Arvell Reese at the mic?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those where it might be that CJ Hicks, just, given the circumstances and the fit and all those kind of things, maybe it's not an NFL decision. Maybe it's a go find a defense where you can be a primary focus of that defense and get used in a way that maximizes your skills and get on the field a ton. So, okay. If you have Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles as your starters, and then you have the mix of Gabe Powers and Peyton Pierce and guys like that behind him, you okay with that?
Yep. And they have Riley Pettijohn coming in as a commit, who I think will be a guy who can play early, and TJ Alford as well, provided they can hold on to him. I think has a chance to play early too.
Okay. Linebacker, feel good. Corners, Jermaine Matthews, Aaron Scott, and Lorenzo Styles in the slot. Does that sound right?
Calvin Simpson Hunt is there too.
Oh, yeah.
I think your top 3 outside corners are Matthews, Scott, and Simpson Hunt. With Matthews, I think definitely being number 1, and then maybe Aaron Scott pushing Calvin Simpson Hunt to be the second corner. And then Lorenzo Styles is the nickel. Yeah.
Okay. Caleb Downs for sure. And your guy, Jalen McClain, as the other safety?
I would probably go Malik Hartford.
Okay.
I don't know. That's an interesting conversation. I would like to see this season play out a little more to see who plays more between Malik Hartford and Jalen McClain. But I would guess Malik Hartford is the starter next year right now.
Okay. How do you feel about that back 7 with the linebackers and the corners and the safeties?
Good. Jermaine Matthews will have played a decent amount.
Too.
Yeah, Caleb Downs obviously is very good. As long as they get Hartford and McClain some decent run this year as backup safeties, I feel pretty good about that secondary.
there's going to be a lot of energy on this roster. And Ryan Day, a year from now, and starting in spring football, is going to be talking a ton about how there's a different vibe and they're looking for leaders, but they have a lot of guys who've been waiting for an opportunity, are so excited to get on the field, and this is their time to shine and it's time to go. But compared to how many guys on this team right now have played so many snaps, that is absolutely going to be the talking point a year from now. We talked about probably need a portal tackle on offense. You mentioned a portal tackle on defense. Does it feel like when we're talking about building the starting defense for 2025, though, that they need to do a bunch of portal work? Or do you feel like most of the pieces are here?
I think most of the pieces are here already. Yeah. And I don't know that even portal defensive tackle is a definite. As I look at it now,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it's a necessity to get you like a fourth guy that you feel really good about, unless Tywone Malone's about to make a huge jump or Will Smith is going to make a huge offseason gain, something like that.
Yeah.
Eric Mentz is another young guy. I think I guess could do something similar. So I would feel much better about a little more experience there to go with the three that are coming back. But otherwise, I think they're pretty well set, because even if Sonny Styles does go to the NFL, I think James Laurinaitis right now, if you said, hey, next year your starting linebackers are going to be Peyton Pierce at Mike and Arvell Reese at Will, I think he'd be like, okay. Like
and Riley Pettijohn
and Riley Pettijohn mixing in, and Gabe Powers mixing in. Yeah.
Yep.
So I think they're okay. One other guy we didn't mention in corners. Just trying to think about guys who are currently committed who could play or push to get on the field. Devin Sanchez, I think, is one at corner to keep in mind. And Naeem offered too, if Ohio State can keep him from flipping to Auburn. I think either one of those guys or both could be in the mix.
So I think when you hear something like Ohio State should have between 4 and 6 starters back a year from now, that is very few. When there's going to be off-season rankings of returning production, that kind of thing, Ohio State, as often is the case, right? When you have a team that has a lot of experience one year, then you have not very much experience the next year. I think initially, like, people are going to hear that and be like, what? And then you start talking about, well, Jelani Thurman's going to play, and you have Jeremiah Smith, and they love James Peoples, and Edric Houston's going to play, and Jermaine Matthews and Arvell Reese. Like, they don't have to go rebuild. The roster's here. And this is, I said before, it's like they almost have two teams right now. They have the team that would have been ready to play if these guys would have gone to the NFL, and they're just all waiting. And I also don't think a bunch of these guys are going to be out the door in the portal because they've waited this long. If you're on the roster now, and now, okay, like Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry stuck around for this, I don't think they're going to go in the portal in December because they've been waiting for Jack and JT to leave and get their opportunity. So it will be a very different vibe to the season, but there's a lot of, obviously, with the way Ohio State recruits, there's a lot of young talent, inexperienced, but not that young talent that has been waiting. And we will not have certainty, but we will have potential. And it will be a really interesting offseason, which makes the opener on August 30th, 2025, the biggest regular season game in Ohio Stadium since Ohio State, Michigan 1-2 in 2006. That's where I'll land on that. That's where I'll land. Okay.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Okay. That's our breakdown of a game 11 months and 3 weeks away. I dare you to find that anywhere else. And if you do find it, they have copied us. So I apologize for not. This is back at Cleveland.com, Bill. I really got into this world of when they were playing MAC teams in September. I would literally go through a week and not write or say the name of the opponent for a week because that's just not what it's about. So that was probably wrong, and I have over time come around on the idea of fans are going to watch this game and go to this game, and we owe it to them to prepare them in some way for what they're about to watch and tell them ahead of time what it might mean and what they should look out for. So to be in a world where people could literally say, I don't know who Ohio State's playing Saturday because Doug never said it and Doug never wrote it. I apologize for that, but I don't apologize for Arch versus Julian.
Yeah, we don't have to give an extensive breakdown of Western Michigan. Just say the name, I think is practically all you need to do. That's who they're playing this week.
Saying the name. There's going to be so much gear opportunity with that.
A lot of gear opportunity.
Buckeyes. Like Ohio State back-to-back champs. You know what I'm saying? Like kind of stuff like that, right? It's going to be all over the place. You know who's going to love that? Gus.
Oh,
if
man.
Gus is on, Gus Johnson's head will explode in fiery flames of manningness and puns if it's Arch versus Sayin on August 30th, 2025. All right. That is the end of our preview, which means it's time for what you watching, what you eating, what you thinking after this. All right, Bill Landis, what have you been watching?
I started watching on Amazon Prime Fallout, the series. I don't know if you are familiar with it all. It's like based off a video game that I actually have only ever played a very little bit. So like I'm not like super into the lore of the game itself. But the show's pretty good. I'm a couple episodes in. It's like a post-apocalyptic thing.
Oh.
There's like people, it's like it feels a little bit like Mad Max kind of. They're like people have just been like living in this post-apocalyptic world, and then people have been like living in shelters, and then at least one of those people who have been living in a shelter gets out and is intermingling with the people who have been living in the real world for the entire time. So it's good. And it has Walton Goggins in it, who I'm a huge fan of. That's like mostly why I'm watching it.
Goggins.
Walton Goggins is the man. So but it's good. It's pretty violent. It's more violent than I was anticipating thus far. Again, I'm like 2 or 3 episodes in, but I like it. I'm looking forward to getting into it more.
So Walton Goggins, I'm still trying to get through Justified, and people have said very good things about Justified. I know it's Berm's favorite show. I'm having a little trouble with it. It's your favorite show? Yeah. I can't say it. I won't say it. Walter, it's just I don't want to say slogging. I don't want to make you mad. I'm not quite all like I'm in the first season still, and I'm just like I'm trying to get into it a little bit. But Walton Goggins. No. I should like it. It's the kind of show I should like. He's like the bad guy in there, and that's like, is that where he got famous? Like everybody thought like he was
I
really
remember, yes, but I remember the first time I saw Walton Goggins was in Major League 3.
Okay,
back to the minors, Major League 3. Yeah, that's the first time I remember seeing him.
And he was in. Is he in Hateful Eight, or is he's in other stuff where he's usually like a kind of a mean evil guy with like a big like stuff eating grin, right?
Yeah, and that's what he is in this show. Yeah,
that's what he is. He was in a show that was on about 2 or 3 years ago. It was a traditional network sitcom, and he was a dad whose wife had died, and he was out in the dating world, and it was just him and his friends kind of talking about, I'm going on a date. And I loved him in that. And then I was like, this guy's usually evil? What? He's such a pleasant widowed father. And then that show got taken off the air after. It was like I was the only person who was watching that show. So I like it when evil guys are pleasant bachelors. So
he seems like a very nice guy in real life, from what I can tell. I've watched a lot of interviews with him over the years.
Very good at being evil. Yeah. I was watching Jousting. Again, if you follow anything on KOTN or our social media accounts, I went to the Ohio Renaissance Festival on Sunday. It's all fall. It's only on the weekends. And I know there's a lot of football happening on the weekends in the fall, but if you can find some time, I think it's a fun time to go check out. People are very into it. But again, one of the things they have there is jousting, Landis. And I saw it 2 years ago when I went. I saw it again now. And they do a lot of jousting things where it's guys sticking wooden jousting poles through rings, like a little bit of that competition. But then they do joust and they jab each other a little bit. And I said, I think jousting should be an Olympic sport. I would much rather have jousting than breakdancing. No offense to breakdancing. But jousting live is pretty cool, man. And I don't know. I guess they do it at medieval times still, which is when we have our KOTN award show at medieval times. We'll have jousting. It is a very entertaining sport. And I understand that people getting knocked off a horse by a big pole is probably dangerous, but so is football. So I am here for a jousting comeback. I think people would watch it.
People would definitely watch it. I would watch it. I used to go to the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair a lot when I was a kid, and I loved watching the jousting. It's like pro wrestling almost, right? It's like play fighting with like decent acting, and it's like, oh, is this real? It's like, no, it's not real, but they're really good at what they do. Like it's
not real. Wait, what do you mean it's not real?
It's highly entertaining. It's not.
You don't think it's real?
Well, I mean, they're actually hitting each other.
Big pole. Yeah.
Yeah. They're not. I don't think like, well, because like when I was a kid and I went to the Renaissance Fair, like you would watch the jousting, but then the jousting would like turn into a full out sword fight. Right.
Oh, okay.
Did they not do that at the Ohio Renaissance
No,
Fair?
no,
It
no.
was
I
like
missed that.
it was like a come watch the jousting, like under the guise of this is a jousting competition, but then like practically like turned into a play where like people were like
okay.
there were like blood feuds and people swinging swords at each other and there's guys flying off of balconies and stuff. Like it was awesome. So if the Ohio Renaissance Fair is not doing that, they need to start doing that stuff because they do it at the PA Renaissance Fair and it's great.
Brilliant. Okay. Maybe we can get them to bring that back. All right. What are you eating?
So I'm really bad about just like cooking for myself and like making smart food decisions during football season, especially. So I like
how you're only putting it during football season.
No, well, clearly generally, but especially during football season. So I'm trying to counterbalance that a little bit with I'm ordering these like factor meals. Basically, they just send you a container that has a chicken breast prepared some type of way with a side of vegetables, and like you just pop in the microwave for 3 minutes, and like that can be your lunch or your dinner. You don't have to think about it.
Nice.
And I've done that stuff in the past, and they've not tasted very good. These are pretty good. I've been pretty pleased with them thus far. Yeah, I've had a few different ones. They're a little pricey. I should probably just be, smarter about cooking for myself instead of paying for them. But I thought like for the price, you get a decent amount of food and the flavors are actually pretty good while maintaining a decent level of healthiness. Like I don't think there's any meal that's more than like 600 calories or 700 calories. So I've enjoyed them. I don't know that I don't have them like every day because they are quite expensive, but I like having them around as like it's 4:00 and I haven't had anything to eat yet today. I guess I'll pop one of these in the microwave instead of going to Wendy's or something like that.
I will say you do a live show from noon to 1:30. It throws off your lunch plans. So you do wind up scrambling late. It does reassure me a little bit that there are people who are as lazy and incompetent as us out in the world because there are so many of these companies that make pre-made meals and send them to you in the mail. And it's like, oh, I could make this. It's like, yeah, you could. Are you?
Right.
No,
but you're not.
I am not. I am not. So you really have to get past it. And we have done versions of that. Most of those meal places advertise on podcasts. So it's like, maybe we'll have an advertisement sometime. But like, I am totally open to that. And you just have to realize like, well, I theoretically could cook this for myself for cheaper, but I haven't for 20 years.
Yeah.
So the choice is pay for fast food that is not good for you and costs as much as this, or pay for this. The option of cooking healthy food for yourself in a manner that is not expensive is out there, but is not really out there for people like us. It's imaginary.
It is imaginary. Yeah. And my situation is compounded by every time I go near the stove, my 1-year-old thinks it's time for him to start playing with the pots and pans and wants to stick his hand way too close to the fire. So it's just easier for me to throw stuff in the microwave.
I don't blame you. My eating is that the Shake Shack down the road from us is closing because nobody went. And it is another example to me of, I have a very, very specific memory of us, my family. We went on a little vacation to New York City. I don't know how long ago, 10 or 12 years ago, maybe. And we went to the Museum of Natural History where Ross from Friends works. And we went to that for an afternoon. And it's like a bunch of dioramas of cave people. It's like, are those real cave people? It's like, no, they're not stuffed cave people. It's just a life-size diorama of a cave person and a woolly mammoth. And it's like, is this that good? And then we got lunch at Shake Shack afterward. And it was when Shake Shack, I think, was still only in New York City. And we were like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And then Shake Shack took over America. And now Shake Shack is 1.5 miles from me. And I think I literally have not been to it in 2 years. And if you would have told 10 years ago, Doug, that a Shake Shack is going to be near him, I would have been doing laps. I was so excited. And it's just the thing again of, it's just the world now that if something is good locally, it spreads everywhere and then it's not cool anymore. So I'm not saying that like Shake Shack should, why don't you go back to New York, Shake Shack? I'm not saying that, but it does make me sort of, as much as I love chain restaurants. And again, I'm a very complicated person. I have very complicated chain restaurant feelings. this is an example to me of like how much I enjoyed something, and then as soon as I got it, I didn't want it anymore. I guess it's like relationships. Maybe people
Yeah.
feel like this about the people in their lives that they love. It's like that's how I feel about chain restaurants. So
Probably.
Sorry,
I think
Shake Shack.
I've only ever had Shake Shack one time, I think.
Yeah. So it's good. It's good.
pretty
I
good.
thought I would eat it all the time. No, I don't. So I'll go for my thinking, by the way, because I asked Mike to get this. You may have noticed this red band on my arm.
Mhm.
And Mike, I'm not sure what photo Mike got, but he did get a photo, because I'm going to tell you that whenever I get blood drawn, okay, I get blood drawn and they put this colored band on my arm, I think I'm the ultimate warrior.
Love
And
it.
I love it. It makes me, I wish I could wear colored armbands every day of the week, because I think they look super sweet. I love the feeling of having like tension on my arm. It feels good. It looks good. I don't follow professional wrestling anymore in a way that I know that you and Austin do, Bill. But every single time, and I have to go to the doctor like a couple times a year to get my diabetes checked, and I always draw my blood. And I'm always like, please let the band they put on be colorful. I don't want it to be white. And I leave it on all day. It's not like my arm would bleed if I would take this off. But I am thinking to myself as a 51-year-old man, today I am the ultimate warrior. How much do you think I look like him?
You look a lot like him. Yeah, you should paint your face.
Yeah. Yeah. So like,
That's
but
funny
it
to me
doesn't
that
look
you feel-
cool.
I actually hate that feeling when I like get blood drawn or give blood. I take that thing off as fast as I can. I can't stand it.
I love it. I love getting my blood pressure checked. I love that pressure. Maybe this tells you something about me. I don't know. I might have some inclinations, but this is all I want to do today. And if you see me out in public when I'm wearing one of these, if you would walk up to me and say, "Excuse me, are you the Ultimate Warrior?" Because I think the Ultimate Warrior actually works or worked for the WWE and like wears a suit and stuff now, like the real person.
He's no longer with us, but he did, yes, for a time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, in appreciation, I am rocking my red armband today. So
yeah, guys,
I love the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, you don't. There are you see some of like the Lucha Libre guys still rock those armbands, but you don't see it a whole lot anymore. No, it's cool. Yeah.
All right, what are you thinking about?
My thinking is also food related and also contradictory to me trying to eat healthier, because we went to the Upper Arlington Arts Festival on Monday, on Labor Day, and I realized that I am at my happiest when I have a big old lemon shake up in one hand and the biggest bag of kettle corn you ever seen in your life in the other hand. And I wasn't expecting it. My wife was like, "Oh, we're going to go to the arts festival because they have food trucks. We'll get some lunch or whatever." I was like, "Okay, that sounds fine. Let's get out of the house. It's a nice day." And then I saw the kettle corn, and they were selling the lemon shake ups at the same place they were selling the kettle corn. And it was just a really unexpected treat. But also, yeah, it made me very happy. After like it was a long week of doing KOTN and KOC and all that stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I get to have a lemon shake up and kettle corn to celebrate.
You earned your kettle corn.
Yeah, it was great. I still have some on the kitchen counter. I'm going to eat it later. I'm excited.
I like. Did they have the option like getting it a little hot, like the fresh made kettle corn at all? Was that at the stand, like a little? You know how like when they just made it, it's a little warm, like it's
warm?
That's
all. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, she took it. She took it right out of the thing and put it in the bag. Yeah,
right out of the kettle.
Right out of the kettle. Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, what's the thing called?
They had different flavors too.
Lovely.
I go straight regular kettle corn, but they had a couple different flavors you could put on it as well.
I would not be against you and I every Friday when we don't have a live show in the afternoon going to get kettle corn at the end of a long week and just being like, cheers to another week.
That's right.
Of good shows. And we could how big the kettle corn is would be depend on how well we think we did.
And then we go for our physicals at the end of every year, and the doctor's like, "What happened?" He's like, "Well, I ate a bag of kettle corn every Friday for a year."
We did a lot of good shows. Sorry, we earned the reward. Did you watch our Julian Sayin show? We got a huge tub of kettle corn that week. All right, that's it for this Kings of Columbus. We will do it every week here because this is the foundation. This is how it all started. We will continue to serve this Ohio State audience because you guys freaking rock, man. So thanks for being here. Try us on KOTN. We recap every Northern game. We preview every Northern game. We talk big picture stuff. We break down the best and most interesting of Northern college football. We do that Monday through Thursday from noon to 1:30 live. And then catch us on our postgame show, 11 p.m. on Saturdays. Ohio State is always like in the mix for that because they're typically one of the most interesting Northern games. So 11 to 12 on Saturday night, we'll wrap up everything that happened important on Saturday. For now, thanks to our producer, Mike Yorostowski, for making us look good and sound good. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. And that was Kings of Columbus.